they dumb enough to think you wouldn't have
You don't
to?
see on the side.
Not right now on this list.
We've got microphones if you need them, or if you just want to talk, it's up to you.
Microphone if I need one. Actually, I do at home. Can I take them?
Yeah, oh, this is Mars, there's not, you have to get your mic, but I think you can totally get your mic.
They belong to the university, I don't live here.
I like it. So what brought all you out here?
To see you.
Oh boy, you
Yes.
So you've been in half
The
a
sun's
half a
got to
dozen
the
movies I
river.
grew up with. So
Sorry?
you're in half a dozen movies I grew up with. So that's actually neat, you. Especially Mad Max and Commando.
Well, let's just start talking about it, huh?
Okay.
Let's talk about Mad Max. How did the Mad Max role happen for you?
Huh?
How did the Mad Max role happen for you?
Okay. This is one of those few moments in my life that I go, correct. You see, I grew up on a little farm in the country with my grandmother. My mother was a very successful songwriter, and I thought I would follow in her footsteps and be a vocalist in rock bands, which I did. And that's where I thought I would stay for the rest of my ever-loving little life. Unfortunately, I was involved in a very nasty road accident and with the band's truck. While I was recovering, I became, and I don't know why, because I'm so easy to get along with, I became a pain in our manager's ass. So he took my photographs around to every agent in Melbourne and actually offered to pay people if they would take them, just to get rid of me. And I got a job being a model, well actually, yeah, being a model, for a new cigarette company called Pratt. And I did 5 commercials all over Asia and Australia. And I thought, this is really cool. I make all this money and the other shits don't get me. I like this. That's the way it should be. And then I promptly got very bored being a model. But there was something that intrigued me, and that was being behind the camera. I loved the mechanics that went into this whole business. So I was always behind the camera. On any set that I was on, behind the camera watching what was going on. And that's where I was dragging myself. I wanted to become a director, so I was learning my craft. Unfortunately, the Ethanos had a different idea. He wanted me to be an actor, which was the one thing in my life I did not want to do. Just to give you a little example, I was on a television show. And the director was standing up on it, looking out over the audience as the scene was shot, and he went, "Oh, you there, the big, ugly, get up here." I kept thinking, he's got to be talking to someone else, because I ain't going anywhere. So I got my butt dragged up, and he said, "I want you to repeat this line." And so he told me, and I went, he says, "When the lead comes out, John Waters walks out on stage, you deliver this line to him." So he went off to set cameras up and came back, and John Waters walked out on the thing, and this voice from back beyond went, director walked out on stage. So after 3 attempts to try to get me to actually stand in front of a camera, he gave up. Because I wasn't doing it. I hated cameras. And that went on for quite a while. And then I got asked to do a stage play. Still didn't want to be an actor. I was directing commercials. Why the hell would I want to be an actor? And my agent said, you should do it because this is going to become like a classic in its own way, a little mini classic. And I was like, yeah. And they said, well, at least read it. And I went, yeah. And the one thing that got me was the macho butch little Vernon from the bush wrestles cows and drives anything with wheels and shoots anything that goes bang, gets asked to do a stage play about a transvestite and her boyfriend. And I thought, I am not gay, and I will never be gay. Why am I doing this? So I didn't want to do it. And I kept fighting it and fighting it and fighting it and fighting it. And one day, finally, I got really upset and I went home to my parents' farm. And I was talking to my brother. And you know how your siblings are the ones that support you? Always. They're there when you need them. Yeah. So I said to my brother, I said, they want me to do this stage play and it's about a transvestite and a boyfriend. And dude, I don't want to do it because there's no way I want to play that. He just stood there and he looked at me and he went, so why don't you get your gay little ass out there and do your job? Sure, why not? So I did. And my opening scene in the play was memorable to the extreme. I was dressed in leather. And I walked on stage, and then I wasn't dressed in leather. My opening scene was to walk on stage, and the front row was closer to me than you are in the theatre. And the opening thing was I walked out and I stripped naked in front of the audience, and then I played with myself and I started my dialogue. And George Miller's girlfriend, Sandy Gore, happened to see a performance. And she rang George, and George told me that she rang me and she said, you gotta come and see this guy. There is nobody in this planet with the guts he's got. George came down, but he never came to see me do the play. I think he was scared. But we did talk and we told jokes to each other and carried on like a pair of 2-year-olds. And I didn't want to do the film. And he sent me the script, and I still didn't want to do the film. And they invited me to come to Sydney for wardrobe tests, and hair and everything, and I wouldn't go. And my agent said, dude, they're paying you to be there for a day, for God's sake. Go and take the money. You're making. So I went, and George Miller's one of my close friends. I adore the man immensely. And this is George, but he has his mindset, So I walk into his office, and he says, oh great, you've had your hair done. No, I'm not doing the film, George. Now, if you turn around a bit, I want to see how the costume is. Good, I'm not doing the film, George. Now, you know, I think we probably need to put something across your ass, because that is just a little bit too much. I'm not doing the film, George. Now, if we put the hair, if we put it in this fashion in the mohawk, it will look. I'm not doing the film, George. Now, fuck, I'll do the film. He would not allow me not to do the film. And that's where my career started, with George Miller having so much faith in me that it terrified me. And I always say that George Miller created my career, and George Miller always says, no, I gave him 23 lines and he turned it into a motion picture. And that's his point, that he gave me and left me, and I did the rest. It was a suicide mission for me because I was terrified. But after we started filming, and everybody asked me the same question, what was it like working with Mel? He was absolutely amazing. He was like my big brother. He took me through everything. He held my hand when I was the one who was like, he was just an amazing human being. So I went through that whole procedure of performance, and I mean, it turned out the way it turned out, which some people tend to think was the greatest thing on film for a while. I take no credit for it. I just did what a scared-ass rabbit would do. I ran all right. Apparently what he wanted. But yeah, so that's where I started. And that's how I got my first film. I'd done nothing of consequence before that. A couple of driving cars, riding horses. I love riding horses because I had a horse, and my horse became the Marlborough horse in Australia because he was this magnificent Palomino with a big white mane, and he was a total shit. He would go to sleep. Like he would be probably crossing his legs and put his head down, and then all you'd hear was, yes, wake up, wake up. You get all grumpy, you know, like, and he was a rodeo horse, so he couldn't use his reins on him. Didn't work. You had to actually use your heels, you know, left heel left, right heel right, you know, and you could pull him up with the rein, but that was it. And the first commercial we did, I didn't do the bowling man because I didn't want to do it. This guy who thought he was the ultimate, I said, do you want me to tell you how to ride him? And he just looked at me and went, I've ridden horses since I was 3 years old. Oh, okay, this will be fun. And he got on the horse, and the first shot he has to go straight at the camera and veer off. After they picked the camera up and the camera crew, he figured out that the horse didn't actually work like a real horse. You had to actually do things. So he ran into the crew 3 times in the first day. Wow. He kept forgetting that you can't pull the reins. You know, you could pull his head around till it touched his butt, and he would still go forward. That was just the way he was trained. And so that was kind of fun. Yes, me and my horse. My horse became famous. I guess I did eventually. But it was fun.
Working on Mad Max, Road Warrior. You said you were more fascinated by things behind the scenes. What did you learn when you're now on a movie set? And so, I mean, did that call to direct you grow stronger, or?
Yeah. I was behind the camera more while I was on that film than I was in front of it. I was always talking to the crew. You know, what do you do? Oh, you do that. Oh, what's that? No. So I was interested in everything that happened and every little thing that was going. And it got to the point where when I finished Road Warrior, I was doing commercials for another quite big director, and his name was George too. It's like I got a thing for George. And he did all the major commercials in Australia, and he used to hire me because he liked me, I guess. And I was working with him, and he said to me one day, he said, every time I want you, you're behind the effing camera with a cameraman or with someone. And he just sort of said, what do you want to be? When I'd like to be you. And he said, you think you can? And see, I got a big mouth like that. He said, you think you could be? And I said, I think I could be better than you. So that was quite the stupidest thing I've ever said. No, it's not. But it was one of the stupidest things I've ever said. So I didn't hear from him for about 3 months. And I thought, well, I said, I'll just keep directing, I'm cool. Then I got a phone call from his office saying, George wants you in here Monday morning, you start. I start what? You start as his producer. I thought, wow, this is cool, starting at the top. George's idea of being a producer was sweeping the floors. So I actually had to start at ground level and work my way up through all the departments. So I learned how to be a grip, how to be a lighting, how to work with everything, how to do the special effects, how to set a commercial, because we did big commercials, how to set a commercial up, how to do everything, camera, lenses, you name it, I learned it. And I kind of had myself in a point of where I was biting at the bit to try all these wonderful things I'd learned. And we put together this big commercial with this older gentleman who was the scourge of everybody in the company. Everybody hated him. He was impossible to work with. And this commercial was a one-shot commercial. It started off and it was 30 seconds of a moving camera with him. And I had plotted, planned, and got the whole thing set up. I knew every nuance of it. And the night before we filmed, George walked past the door and he popped his head into my room and said, oh, by the way, you're directing this, good luck. And I went, oh, thanks. And he walked off and I just went, what? Shit. Panic set in, but I didn't have a lot of time to panic. So the next morning I started on the commercial. And it started off with a shot of the sun rising behind this huge department store for about a dolly up. And it came down from that and turned 80 degrees, 90 degrees actually, and the old gentleman was standing there, and then everything went backwards. So in the time that it came down, we had to go on a dolly seamlessly and be on him and then go backwards into the building and around and turn. There's 120 television sets with his image on it, what I'm filming at that point. So I'm going, this isn't going to work. Not one effing thing is going to work. I'm going to be here for days. Dear God. Put it up. Run, bam, thank you, man. We got it in one take. The whole thing perfect. And he walked up to me this whole, I always remember it, so much fun when people do things and set your career going. He walked up to me and as he walked away, he went, "You're a nice kid. And you're a good up and coming director. Keep at it, son. You're going to make it one day." And I thought, I was never going to say to him, I just did. I actually made it with you and you didn't kick my ass. But that was kind of where everything happened. I was happy. I didn't want anything else. I still didn't want to be an actor. Even though I'd done Road Warrior, it was my 15 minutes of fame as far as I was concerned. That was the end of it. Well, I did it, and it was an amazing film, and I was very proud of it. But I didn't figure going anywhere else until some dipshit producer in America. And the funny thing is, when he rang me, he didn't ring me, he rang my agent, and she rang me and said, "There's a producer in America who wants you to come over and do a film." And I went, "Tell him to stick to the film with a monkey stuck to peanuts." And she said, "Oh, you don't want to go?" And I went, "Seriously? Sure." So she apparently, Joel Silver, by the way, was the producer. So she rang back and said, "Vernon doesn't want to come to America." Phone was hung up. A couple of weeks later, she rings me and she said, "They've just doubled the offer and they want you to come and do this film." And I went, "Tell him to stick the offer." And then she went, "I'll tell him to come to America." Just 3 times. They doubled the offer 3 times. And finally he said, I don't think it was Joel, I think it was his assistant, so finally he said, "Tell him fucking no one." And she went, "I think that's the idea. He doesn't really want to come." So she hung up the phone, and we thought that was the end of it. They rang back 2 weeks later and offered a lot of money. And she said, "Okay, dude, you're on a plane, you're going to America, and you're going to do this film whether you want to or not, or I'll have 2 of my friends break all your legs." So I said, "All right, I'll get on the plane, go to America and do a fucking film." And when I was leaving, she was quite an old lady, she was in her 80s. She'd been like my surrogate mother, because my mother lived in the country, when I was in the city doing all this shit. She was like my mother. And as I was leaving the place, she gave me a letter, and she said, "Stick this in your pocket, and when you if you get a chance, read it." And I went, "Oh, okay." So I stuck the letter in my pocket, didn't even think about it. And I was halfway across the Atlantic to America, and doing something like, "Oh, letter." Took it out, and it said, "Dear Vernon, out of everybody I've had in my 60-odd years doing with actors, you're the only one I've ever had who will make it. God bless you, my friend. And don't try to find me. I have retired and I don't want to see you." So my mother left me. And it destroyed me, believe me, for a while. But it was the smart thing to do. She was retiring. She didn't need me ring her up every 7 minutes going, so she was a smart lady. And that brought me to America to do With Science, of which I really wasn't that interested until I found out who the director was. And I really, really wanted to work with him because he'd done all those young kid angst movies. And I was just sort of, see, my life's different to yours because I grew up on a little farm in the spring. I didn't grow up in America. So I didn't and still don't have those attitudes. And one of them was, I was in a hotel that was on the top of the hill at Universal Studios. It was exactly 720 yards to the front gate from my hotel room. I measured it. They used to come up in a limousine and pick me up. And I couldn't handle it. It was like, what are you doing? And the first morning, this guy standing out there, and as I walked out there, he said, "Oh, Mr. Wells." And I went, "Yeah." He said, "Your car, sir." And I went, "I'm sorry, my car, where are we going?" He said, "To the set." I went, "Set's over there." And he went, "Yes, sir. I want to walk down the mountain and go to the set. I want to exercise when I walk down." He said, "Sir, if you walk down there, they'll fire me." So we came to a really good arrangement. He drove his car down the limo, and I jogged beside him. And then when we got down the hill to the gate to Universal, he would stop and I would get in the back seat, and we would drive through the gate, around the corner, he'd pull up and let me out to the studio. We did the same thing at night. He would pick me up at the studio, drive through the gate, stop, and I would drive up the hill beside the limo. I couldn't understand, why would I get in a limo? What? But I started to get used to it eventually. On the set, it was the same thing. It was a set like a big room like this and had a two-story house in it. Complete two-story house that came apart in 4 pieces. I was just like, this is really weird. In Australia, we would be using some matchboxes. So it was different attitude, which I had to get very used to, and the other attitude I had to get used to is I'm extraordinarily, and I still am to this day, I'm very friendly. I mean, I cuddle people, that's my thing. If I like you, you get cuddled. I'm sorry, that's how I was brought up. My mother always used to say that the touch of a human being means more to somebody than saying hello. And that's how she brought me up, to be that person. And I never got used to it or past it. So every morning I would walk in, and Joel Silver had his office about 80 feet from the front of the studio. And he had this secretary, she was about 5'11", had mauve eyes. And I'd never seen mauve eyes. She had mauve eyes and blonde hair and stunning. And every morning I would go in and I'd throw myself on her desk and I'd beg her to marry me, and she'd push me off her desk. Told me she was married and to get my ass into the studio because I needed to be upset. That went every morning. It was just a little thing. And I would say hi to everybody, cuddle everybody. Just me. And we were off for a weekend and they got a new girl who was part of the camera crew. And on the Monday morning I came through, jumped onto Reed's desk, and she threw me on the floor, and I wandered into the set. Hey, everybody, I walked up to the camera department, and I was talking to the camera, and everybody got a cuddle, and I walked up and said, "Oh, you're new," and I went like that, and she put her hand in my chest and said, "Get the fuck out of my face." Now, 2 things happened right at that moment. I went, shit. Everybody in this crew hates me cuddling them, but because I'm one of the stars, their jobs are in jeopardy if they bitch, so they're putting up with it. Number 1. Number 2, I went inside myself into a shell and I would sit in the corner and say nothing until I was called on the set. I would do my job. I would come back. That lasted 3 days. Blonde, large, came through the door and looked at me and said, "Come here." And I was like, oh, somebody said something. I walked over and I went, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You're in trouble." And I went, I know, I'm sorry. I'm an Australian, what can I say? She went, "What are you on about?" I went, "What are you on about?" She said, "If you're not on my desk tomorrow morning and cuddling the crew, your ass is out of here." And I went, "What?" She said, "Dear God, if some crapped out little gay broad wants you not to touch it, don't touch her. Touch everybody else, you dumb shit." So I learned a lot in that movie. about how everybody is and how the world works here. It was quite fun. And, I actually, when I finished, Joel took me around to all the casting agents and everybody, and he said to me, he said, I'm doing this movie called Commando with this guy called Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I had no clue who Arnold Schwarzenegger was. And I said, and he said, I'd love you to see the director because I'd like you to do it. I went, So they took me to the director, and the director said, I don't want it. I have the choice for the part, and I don't want it. And didn't worry me. I went, that's cool, I'm on a plane. So I went back to Australia, and I think 3 months went by, and the production had been going for 4 or 5 weeks filming. And a friend of mine was actually DJing at that time as well. I used to love being a DJ in clubs. And a buddy of mine who was sharing my house got a phone call from America, from Joel Silver's office saying, we need to talk to Vernon because there's a ticket at the airport. He needs to be in America within 48 hours. So my friend, who now lives here in America, by the way, he set out to find me. And he thought, how the hell do I find you? And sitting on a table beside the phone was, believe it or not, was a little black book. So he started, and he rang every page in the little black book. Got some very unpleasant replies from women, but all the way until finally this young lady said, yeah, he's in bed. Shall I get him? And he went, yeah, please. So she gives me the phone and said, what? He said, Joel Silver's office rang, he's got to be in America in 2 days. And I went, tell him fucking hang up the phone. And he came to, pounded on the door till I got out of bed, got dressed and said, all right. And I went and I flew to America and did the film. And Annie and I had a lot of fun. It was kind of fun because I was very tired the morning I arrived. They cut my hair, shaved my beard off, put me in a costume that actually was too small for me, and put me on the stage. And I was really tired. Arnold was, if any of you have seen the film, it's the scene where he's tied to the table, and I put a knife to his throat. And I have a habit of just looking at cameras and where things are when I'm working, so I know where everything is in the scene, so I know what I'm doing. And of course I was doing that very sleepily. I was delivering dialogue like, I wish I had had my knife near your throat. I would have, and it was really bad, because I was really tired. And he called Joel over and he went, Joe, I thought we were going to have someone working with me that was a man, not a little girly boy. And I heard it, and I went, girly boy? Oh, you did. So we do the scene, because the minute he said action, of course, I'm awake and doing the scene. We do the scene, and every action, cut. And Joel walks over to one and he says, so do we shut down production and recast or what? And Arnie apparently looked at him and said, never give him a real knife. That was the end of it. We became good friends.
Well, I'm going to pass you on to our audience to ask some questions if you don't mind.
No, fuck it.
All right, goodbye.
Yes.
What's your beer?
What's what?
What's your beer?
My beer?
In Australia?
I don't drink.
Oh, apologies.
I had an alcoholic father.
Oh, okay.
And I became very close to being an alcoholic myself. And when I finally got my ass and my head together, I realized what I was doing, and I haven't drunk since. But what I drank was, I used to enjoy Foster's.
I spent 3 months down under catching crocs, sea turtles, snakes. I like the Melbourne. Everybody was always liking the VB, and I was like, ugh.
No, they're all Yeah, the thing with Australian beer is a lot stronger than me.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, what I'll drink now is I'll drink what's called a shandy. And having been down there, you probably know what that is, a beer with lemonade in it. And that cuts down the alcohol of the beer. I will drink that if I'm with friends and everybody's drinking, I'll have one of them. But, no, that's funny, while we're on that. Being in bands and things, whenever you went into the band room when I was in bands, in the middle of the table was a glass container with all this white powder in it. Lots of little silver spoons. And that was just the way it was. So I was used to Coke, smoking, everything, didn't matter. I was touring with the band and we were in the outback and we were at this amazing hotel, or it was actually a motel on top of a mountain. It had never been flat, there'd always been a mountain. But they'd gone in to take all the lumber off it, and what they'd done was they'd made it level, and then they put this beautiful lake in it, and it had all these beautiful lawns. And I got up at like, I don't know, 6:30 in the morning. I was desperate to go to the toilet. So I was walking down beside the rooms because the toilet block and the shower block was separate. And I was walking down towards it. And I sort of glanced over and there was a lot of kangaroos on the lawn, but there was this mist rolling in caused by the sun as it was cresting the back of the mountain. And they were bobbing. Now, remember those things you put on the side of your drink? And it goes, look at, look at, you know. That's what they were doing. They would be sitting and they go, shoot, munch, 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 and they'd come back up. And I'm standing watching them go, oh. Wow. The hotel walked up and he's standing beside me. And he goes, isn't nature amazing? I went, yeah. What? What? He said, nature, man, I have this every morning. And I went, last time I took a drug in my life.
Well, one of the other experiences I really enjoyed is going into the shops and just ordering the burger with the lot because you never knew what it was. I really enjoyed that over there.
Yeah, it's a different, you know, I always tell people what I love about Australia was you could go into a fish and chip shop and get a steak sandwich with everything, and it would have egg and beetroot and all this stuff on it. It was a meal in a steak sandwich, and I miss all that. I used to have the hamburgers.
I loved it. I got as many as I could get while I was down there.
Yeah, every time I go home, I will, the first thing I'll do is go, there's a little fish and chip shop in the mountains. When I used to go up to my parents' place, I had to drive up through the mountains. And it was funny, that I'm married to an American Japanese girl. My wife was American Japanese. And the first time I took her to Australia, I said, we're going to drop off at my favorite fish and chip shop and we're going to get fish and chips. Okay? And she went, okay. So we go in and, as you know, you've been there, they wrap your fish and chip in newspaper. Because it draws all of the oil off the fish and chips. So of course I had fish and chips and I had potato cakes and steamed dim sum, you know, oh shit. And I said, what do you want? She went, nothing. And I went, okay. So we go outside, I'm sitting eating my stuff, and I said, why don't you just try this fish, it's just amazing. And she went, no, it's in bloody newspaper. You're kidding me. And I went, no, I'm serious. So I held her down basically. This piece of fish.
Nice.
I had to go and get my own fish and chips. She just went, oh my God, the minute was in. I went, oh crap.
That's the
I
way
go back. So every time we go, we stop at this little fish and chip shop and get fish and chips. And I miss that.
Yeah.
You know, just those, and it's funny because people say, don't you miss Australia? I miss the little things that I did as a kid that I can't do here.
Yeah, the little shops.
That's all I miss. I don't miss the whole big thing because I live here. I've lived here for 40 odd years, so it's not like I'm missing anything. But yeah, so that was me, and A funny story about Mad Max. They sent a Japanese film crew out to do a documentary, and I am the worst human being on the planet if nobody ties me down. So I'm dressed in my costume, and they're going to do an interview with me, and I'm up on the boardwalk, and they're setting the camera up, and I'm pressing backwards and forwards along the boardwalk like the gayest human being ever created, playing. And the little Japanese man asked me a question. I figured that they're testing microphones, and I go, "Oh yes, of course. You know, being around all these boys is just so much fun because they're also." And I do this whole gay thing, and then the guy goes, "Thank you, Mr. Wells," and I go, "Oh shit." George Miller steps out of the shadows and goes, "It ain't over till the fat boy sings, and that's me." Wait, I'm dead. Somebody killed me somewhere on this set. It was so funny. It was like, you know. But that's what I get myself in trouble all the time. But I can't be too bad. I just finished my 350 something movies, so I'm kind of proud of what I've done for the last 35 years. But yeah, it's, you know, people kind of talk to me about what I've done and how I've done it, and to be quite honest, as I like to say in this, is I haven't got a clue. I teach acting. I teach acting. God damn, that is really hard. And I love teaching kids. A little story. I was teaching all these little kids, and one of them was being a total pain in the ass. So finally, I had it with him. He was spoiling things. And so I walked up to him very quietly, and I said, "If you continue, I swear to God, I'll kick your ass so hard you'll be able to clean your teeth with your testicles." And he started to cry. Now, to get that in perspective, just before that happened, I said to the class, "Be an inanimate object." This little girl was standing beside him like this. And after I finished saying that, she went, "Oh, dear God." So I walk up to her and I put my arms around her and I said, sweetie, it's okay. It's okay. He was just being a real pain. And I didn't want him spoiling everything, and I am so sorry. I should never have said that. And this is exactly how it went. "That's okay, Mr. Wells. I'm a weeping willow." Yeah. Great teacher. So that was just like this whole thing. And I say to the kids and the people I teach, if you want me to teach you to act, you know, take your money back, because I can't. Nobody can. I'm different to a lot of, most of the acting coaches hate me, by the way. To me, it's a simple thing. Every one of us, all of you, when you're born, when you come out of your mother's womb, you're an actor. How do you get what you want when you're a little kid? You throw a tantrum, you beat your head on the wall, you kick on the floor, you do whatever you need to do. And the minute you get that thing, you're like, oh, acting. We do it. And we do it to maintain friendships. We do it for what, but it gets beaten out of us. You know, there'll be your parents, your teachers, people saying, you know, act your age. What are you, some kind of idiot? And slowly it goes away. Now there are some who are idiots, some will just keep doing it. And they become famous actors. And I try to explain to them that acting is actually easy in its own way. It's just like it's a square box, it's a room. As a teacher, what I do to you is I give you the furniture to put in that room. And then it is your job to put the furniture in the room. It's then my job to tell you where it should or shouldn't go. That is what acting is. You take what's given to you, you digest it, you put it out there, then the director or whoever will say, I love that, don't like that, love that, let's do this, and that's what you do. It's that simple. There's no mystical, magical tour that makes it any different. It is what it is. I did a film in Sacramento, California, about 10 10, 12 years ago. And the guy that was on the film doing special effects, they needed a character to play this role that was like the central figure of the film. He was like the truth bringer. There was a bar, he was the bar, the barkeep, he owned the place. So people talked to him, so he was like the truth giver. And he said, you should ring Vernon. And so eventually they rang me and I said, send me the script. The script was brilliant, it was called Savior of None. If you've ever seen it anywhere, watch it. It is brilliant. It is such an incredibly well done film. Little tiny film. And so he rang me up and he said, you know, I'd like to offer you this. We haven't got a lot of money. I'll give you $1.50 and you can walk up here sort of thing. And I said, sure. What the hell? Why not? And so I had the script for about a week and I flew up. Now they could only use me for one night because it was being shot in a real bar. All those drunkards, once they threw their asses out, then we had the bar till the next morning when they come back. So we had one night to do this thing, I was in. And I arrived in Sacramento and Brian picked me up. Brian is the director and writer. I don't often get picked up by directors and writers. It's usually the other way. They're the ones taking me to the airport and saying, do not ever come back. But Brian was picking me up to take me to the film. And on the way he said, I picked you up because I wanted to explain the character to you because there's a lot of nuances in it. And because we really won't have time tonight, I wanted you to get it together. And I said, okay. How about I tell you what I think? And then you tell me where I'm wrong. I was doing the same thing as what I did. And then you tell me where I'm wrong. And that way we could save a hell of a lot of time. And he went, okay. So I proceeded for like 15 minutes to tell him how I saw the character and the way it was in the film and how it went away with. Then I finished and I sort of turned to him and I said, so what do you want to change? And I swear to God, this is all that happened. He had his hands on the wheel of the car. Didn't look at me and he went, fuck you. We've been partners ever since. Very big couple. But it was just so funny because we talk about it occasionally and he said, there was nothing. Everything you had figured out. There was nothing I could tell you. You just figured it. And I said, I don't know. I'm not trying to be smart or make you think I'm some super colossal wonderful tuber. I'm not. I have something within me. Just to let you understand, my grandfather was 3/4 Aboriginal. My mother was a half caste. I am a quarter caste, Aboriginal Australian. The reason I'm white, my birth father was Welsh. And the Welsh aren't white. No. They're beyond white. So I got the very pale skin, and I actually used to have a very wide nose. And I had an accident in the car with my girlfriend, and my face went into the dashboard, and I went across the dashboard and ripped. I have all these wonderful scar lines, ripped my face off, basically. And she was smart enough to realize if I could see it, I would probably die from shock. So she tore a piece off her skirt, bound my eyes really quickly so I couldn't see anything. And the reason she kept telling me, you're bleeding, I don't want it getting in your eyes. And it actually had a sting, so I was accepting what she said. Took me to the hospital, and when they were working on the building, they went, oh, he's white. So they gave me a white nose. And a few other little things that I didn't actually have. That's great. Now I'm white, damn it. But I have this, I don't know what it is, I seriously don't. It's just this innate ability to look at things and put myself in that position and go, if that was me, what would I do? How would I handle that situation? And that's how I work a character. And then I work backwards to where the film starts with my character, and I figure out the steps that character should take. George Miller put that in my mind, simply because when we started Rotary for a week, we wrote a back-up of who we were, a biography from the day we were born to the day the film started. Then we would come into and sit around a big table every morning, and Terry Hayes and Brian Hanna, George Miller would sit there in judgment and listen to us as we read our biography and give us solid critiques like that shit. Rewrite that, that's crap, get it out. Yep, oh, that's a nice line, keep that. 4 pages, I get to keep one line. But then we would rewrite it, come in and do the same thing again. And by the end of the week, we had actually written a synopsis of who we were as a human being from the time we were born till the time that film started. There was nothing you couldn't fit in there that we had done. And it was from that training with George is where I got what I do as an actor. I don't act. Somebody said to me, "You're a great actor," and I went, "I bet you I'm not." I do. It's very simple. I don't act, I do. I am. I become the character. I inhibit, this formula that I have created, and then I do it on stage, or I do it on film. I think I'm blessed. I always say the same thing, that God blessed me so much. I'm Buddhist, so I have, I'm the worst Buddhist in history, by the way. But I'm a Buddhist. My wife is very Buddhist. And I look at things from the point of view of what would I do and why. And that's, on film, it seems to work, so I'm told. I work for, I just did a film, I work for a company in Cincinnati, and it's a female director, Lana Reed, brilliant, and she hired me 2 years ago to do a film, and she swore that if I once, this is the way things go in the business level, she swore that if I once caused problems on the set, she would ship my ass back to LA so fast my nose would bleed. I went, "Where did you get that?" She said, "It's everywhere." Sheesh, I remember that. I'm that bad? Wow. From that film, I've done every film she's done. She puts me, she has to have me in the film. So we did a film the end of last year. And it's about a family, a husband and wife, who I've known since I was born. I'm a family doctor, so I've known them all their lives. They've been married for 20 years. The kids have now gone off to college and done their thing. And the wife is finished. She wants to get divorced to get out of marriage. She did her duty till her kids. The husband is not feeling good. He comes in, I do some tests, and then they both come in, and I'm the one that has to tell him that he has cancer and he's got 3 months. And which I do the scene with them, and I try to talk him into doing everything possible to prolong his life. It may only be a month, maybe 6 weeks, but that's better than nothing. And he says, no. If that's a prognosis, that's a prognosis. I'm not doing it. Now his wife's kind of caught in the middle of all this, because if she leaves him, she's a bitch. If she stays, is she doing it just because she's sorry for him? So there's these wonderful dynamics in it, and I'm caught in the middle of it all, which is really cool. Well, the funny part about all that is the editor, his mother had died of cancer 7 months before this film was completed and went to his desk. And she died because she refused to do what the doctor wanted. She just decided she would go. We got to that scene. I got an email from him. It actually came from Lana. She sent it on to me and went, "Fuck you," right at the start of it. I went, "Is that you he's talking about?" And she said, "You, keep reading." And it said, "Fuck you." I have never cried so much as I did when I saw that scene. My mother did the same thing, and I went through what you're going through in this movie, and man, it broke my heart. To me, that's acting. Right there, to be able to get somebody to be that in tune with what you're doing.
Sadly, I would love to talk forever because you are amazing. Your story is great.
Yeah.
You've had a wonderful career.
What's
Oh,
the
it's
name
not
of the
time.
movie?
We got time.
What's the
Yeah, we
name?
got time. Yeah, sit down, shut up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll finish at 5 o'clock. How's that?
Sounds good for me. It's good
What's
for
the
you.
name of that movie?
My name?
No.
Oh, the name of the movie. Oh, God. It's just one word.
Braveheart's a compound word.
Some people, no, it's forbearance.
Correct.
It's called forbearance.
Did you
And
ever,
it's just, sorry,
did you ever cross paths with Rupert Howard?
Rutger Hauer. Yeah, Rutger and I were friends.
What movie did you guys do?
Did we do a movie together? We did, but we weren't in any scenes in it.
Oh.
We did a movie together. It was after we did The Blind Swordsman.
Right.
It was a movie he did after that. I was in it, and he was in it, but I never. But we just became really good friends, and we always wanted to do stuff together. But it's like that normal thing, you know. His career went there, my career went there, and yeah, it broke my heart. He was such a cool dude, very intense, which I can't be. I'm always the dumb shit on the set. I don't know how to be intense. But yeah, it's. I sort of look at things and think that my grandfather once said to me, two things you can't change. The day you're born and the day you die. You're working from the day you're born to the day you die. You're working from one to the other. And he said that there's a path set for all of us. We have two choices. We follow it or we don't. Now, sometimes when you drift off the path, if you're lucky, you get drugged back to some thing. All my life, when I was doing road warrior, I don't want to do it. George would not accept no. And I was dragged screaming and kicking back to where I was supposed to be. And I've had that occurrence a number of times. Different things have happened. And I've just, my first divorce, I just put my head in the sand and that's it. So, that I've done. But my manager, who was this amazingly beautiful lady, would not allow that to be. She just persisted and persisted until she got me back doing what I was supposed to do. So, looking at who I am and what I've done, I look at it and I go, I am incredibly, incredibly lucky. Before I met my wife, I was, as my manager said, this is a true story, I had a board in her office behind her, and I had all these squares in it, and there was people's names with money and dates. And I thought it was one of those lotteries for football, you know, where you say, this team's going to win, whatever. Super Bowl wasn't coming, you know, well, what the hell, I don't know much about American football. So I was talking to her and I said, Chris, what's the board behind you for? And she went, oh, this. And I said, yeah. She said, oh, that's when you're going to die. And I went, what? She said, they're betting on the day that you will kill yourself. And I went, tell them none of them are going to win. That was how bad I was after my divorce. I went to the point, I had a Corvette. I was pulled up 4 times for 120 miles an hour on Pacific Coast Highway. If you've ever been on Pacific Coast Highway, there is someone killed on that road and every other friggin' day doing what I was doing. Not once did I ever get close to being killed the way I was going. But I got pulled up by this very cute little lady who was a highway patrol. First time she pulled me up, she slapped me in handcuffs and threatened to bury me somewhere. Second time she pulled me up, she said, that's it. that is it. If I pull you up again, speeding on Pacific Coast Highway, I will take your car, I will have you jailed, and I will have it so bad that you will never work as an actor again. And I went, whoa, 5'3", and you're less tough, jeez. And she was serious. So I thought about it, and I thought, you know what, she's right. So I sold my Corvette and got a GT Ford, which is nearly as good if you want to kill yourself. But after I got it and figured out that it was really the worst vehicle on the planet to drive, excuse me, you want me to come back, right? Oh, okay, I'll do that. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Now then, I don't give a shit if I sat here all night. So, what were we talking about? Me and my...
Your GT4.
My what?
Your GT4.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Ford. It had a habit of lifting off the ground when the semi went past it. If you were doing it, my ex-wife got her lawyer to ring me and demand that I give her a vehicle. So I did. I gave her a Ford. And I told her to be ready to go for driving it. And she sort of looked at me like I was a worm and went, what the fuck is your problem? I went, hey, you have the Ford. It's on lease, I'll pay the lease. You can do whatever you want. Goodbye. 4 accidents and a lot of other shit later, she gave it back to me.
Oh my.
Never asked me for another car. That was the end of it. But yeah, I don't know. I look at myself sometimes. My life changed when I met my wife. She's the most amazing human being. She's Japanese American, most intelligent person I've ever met in my life. He's stunningly beautiful. And puts up with me. I've never understood why. But the one thing about her is I will never let her practice lines with me. It's like trying to pull teeth. Okay, sweetheart, sure, you can read the other lines with me, so I'll do my little bit, and she'll go, John, you are a bad man. So I sort of sit there and go, uh-huh. When you get to the end of the paragraph, let me know so I can come in with my one. That lasted once, and I didn't want to upset her, so I told her very nicely that, seriously, if you continue to do this, you and the dog will be buried at the back of the yard. Let us just stay married. But she taught me a lot of things. She taught me grace. Her name is Grace, by the way. She taught me grace. She taught me perseverance. She taught me to love myself and those around me. She taught me to never think that I am better than anything, and that includes anything on this planet, because I'm not. And she taught me to be grateful for everything I have, because I've been very blessed, and I should be very proud of what I do. That's my life. And I always say when I do one of these talks and I finish, I always say, from my heart, may the grace of this day go with you. May everything you do turn out to be what you want and the way you want it. May you never see another day of sorrow as long as you live. May God, whoever He is in your mind, bless you. Please, thank you so much for putting up with my shit for now.